Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Retro Remix, our newest show where we look at video games and try to do music, either covers of particular tracks from video games or, do pieces of music that are heavily inspired by those games. My name is Killjoy and I'm joined, as always, by the one, the only, Mr. Fruity Sama. How's it going?
Hello, not bad. Not bad at all.
Nice.
Excited for this one.
Yeah, you take it away.
Yeah, so going after doing Sega and Sonic and all that good
16-bit.
16-bit, we thought we'd continue the bit of the old school and do Pokemon Red and Blue.
Yep.
So for this track, I've decided to do Lavender Town, and Killjoy's done a variant of the battle theme.
Yeah.
Probably the best way to describe it?
Yeah.
It's like an inspired by the Pokemon battle theme or battle music, whereas mine's a reimagining of Lavender Town. So kind of similar to last time.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say too much more about my piece until we play it. So I feel like it probably worked better that way.
Yep.
I think the composer's the same for both, though, isn't it?
Yes.
The composer for Pokemon Red and Blue was Masuda Junichi.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's about as good as I can pronounce. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, he seems like a pretty cool dude. Very prolific. So much of this music is linked to my childhood. Like the entire Pokemon craze of the 90s.
Yeah.
A little bit about my song. The Lavender Town music was rated second most scary video game soundtrack in 2012. And there's also a creepypasta about Lavender Town syndrome, where the music compelled 200 Japanese children to commit suicide in the spring of 1996.
Yeah.
Not real, but it's a creepypasta.
Yeah.
So it kind of shows how great and how remembered this piece of music is.
Yeah,
it's very iconic, very a lot of people's first introduction to scary music.
It's almost completely different to the rest of the music in the game. If you think about every other piece of music in the game, it's either there to get you pumped up for a fight, or it's very jolly. You think about Route 3, or you think about the towns you go to, it's very calm, it's very jolly music, and you get to Lavender Town, and it is not that at all.
It's very weird, because I remember I have a distinct memory of being a kid, and entering it, because you go through the cave, don't you, and you drop down from the fights with the rock Pokemon trainers. And then when you hit the town, it's just such a departure from everywhere you've been to before then.
Yeah.
And it's you've gone through this big tunnel, you don't know where you are, you don't know what's around it. Because you've literally just popped out of the ground, and then you're in this haunted cemetery town.
Yeah.
Everyone's really depressed as well. All the characters are not happy and stuff. Yeah, and you go to the massive funeral town with all the dead Pokemon in it. It's you talk to all the trainers being oh yes, my Eevee died and I'm here putting flowers down its grave. It's a very weird, dark area.
Yeah, it's surprisingly very mature for a game that's basically a kid's game, baby's first RPG, if you will, in a lot of ways. But yeah, it's very weird.
And the ghost as well, and you need to get the flute.
Yeah, the Silphsco as well.
Yeah,
to see
Marowak.
Yeah.
Ghosts and stuff like that. It's a very weird area. That's why I chose to do that one.
It's definitely one of my least favourite areas of the game, just because of how... not horrible, but just how... It just puts me on edge in a way I don't like.
It's constant suspense.
Yeah.
The music is very atonal. It's very just random chords. The beta I was listening to, it was all the really harsh trills and noises and stuff like that. It's very atmospheric, not really horror, but it's very dread. I think is the word I kept seeing people describe it as. It's this overwhelming sense of dread. It's that walking into a deserted town at the beginning of a horror film or something. It's that sense of unease.
Yeah, something's going on. You need to figure out what's going on and whatnot. Yeah, I kind of went and did the opposite side of that, because for me, when I think about Pokemon, there's like a couple of pieces of music that really stand out, and that some of that's the battle music, like both the gym leader battle music, the trainer battle, the wild Pokemon battle stuff, and also some of the route music. A lot of the route music in Pokemon is really upbeat, really jolly, and it's like very like, we're going on an adventure kind of vibe to it, and like so. Eventually, I kind of like settled on doing a. It's meant to be inspired by the battle theme, the generic battle theme that plays when you're fighting trainers. I don't think I've quite, excuse me, quite nailed the feel. However, there are definitely elements in what I was going for and that are in my track that feel very Pokemon-y. One thing that's made me really respect the composer on this is like you don't realize how complex this music is, especially the battle music. You have essentially 4 audio channels on a Game Boy to make the music, 2 of which one's got the main melody, the other one's got the counter melody on it. Listening to these tracks over and over, the main melody is pretty simple. If you listen to the original battle theme, it's like da 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 da. It's nothing too complicated.
It's just holding like the root chords.
Yeah, you listen to the counter melody and it's like it's crazy what it's doing, and I never really appreciated it.
Pokemon music is like that, though, isn't it?
Yes.
A lot of it is like lead melody and then counter melody.
Yeah, and
very little percussion or like bass.
Yeah, and
it's just 2 melodies.
It just made me really appreciate like how complex these tracks are for what are essentially. I mean, the original battle theme's probably be about 1 minute and 40 seconds before it loops. Mine isn't quite as long as that, but it's about that. And when you listen to it, like, and break it down with the main melody, the counter melody, and the, like, kind of the bassing that's going on there, it's like, wow, it's like somebody wrote it to be played on an orchestra and then scaled it down. That's how it feels to me, because it's very complex. More so than
a lot of classical music is like that, where you got like the 2 melodies, like the kind of duet of like 2 lead sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing I like about the Pokemon is it kind of does like the battle music does that like the grandiose, like, you know, classical march kind of thing, where it's like big chords, very like from both, just like the what's the word I'm looking for? Where it's like the announcing of like a dignity in like the medieval time, fanfare. Like, it's a very fanfare, but then they add in drama with that like continuous like arpeggiated like background melody that gives it like all the like the stress and stuff.
Yeah. And like something I also noticed as well is you don't really pick up on it because it's just kind of part of it. But every time you enter a battle, whether that be wild versus a trainer versus a gym leader, you always get that but it's slightly different depending on the type of battle. And I forgot about that, and I didn't do that for my track specifically. I kind of gone for just a straight into it. But I was like, I forget that's part of the music. That's not just an effect that happens.
And also with like the flashing and stuff as well.
Yeah,
like
the black
really
and swirl and
the feel for this like being an important encounter. Because it's very like that like action movie kind of thing as well. And like the Rocky soundtrack's got a very similar like arrangement idea.
Yeah.
There's all that like big held notes and then like a more pulsing beat behind it.
Yeah.
Obviously Rocky's more like disco pulsing rather than like this like crazed arpeggiated.
Alright, so I guess we'll get on with playing the tracks. We're going to start with mine this time, this week.
Flip it up a bit.
Yeah, and so yes, mine's Pokemon inspired. So there are a couple things in this track that I think definitely reflect the Pokemon. One of them is the kind of the runs, the arpeggiated runs. You will hear a couple of those. The intro to the track very much has that short stabbing like kind of build up that the original battle theme has. But yeah, other than that, I've used 5 audio tracks. Generally, if it's trying to get it as close as inspired by the original Game Boy, that would only have 4 audio tracks. So I only ever use the 5th track to kind of layer things in this. There's a nice little bit of tape delay, which kind of with the Game Boy and with the NES and stuff. When you had limited tracks, you used to like play a note and then you play a note quieter to try and emulate like delay. So that's kind of going on. My track's about 1 minute, 1 minute 20, but there's a little bit at the end just to show where it would loop. There's not really much more I can say about it other than like, the bass is very bouncy. Like I'm really happy with how the bass sounds in this. Like all the sounds are done with very basic synths. I've obviously like tried to bit crush them in places, not to the point where it sounds awful, but just to try and crunch the sound down a little bit.
That would be a good challenge. Just use like the ES1 and just like have our tracks arranged with like the noise channel. Is it noise triangle square? Is it or something like that?
The NES was square triangle noise.
Square triangle noise.
I believe the triangle's always used for the bass. The other two are the
melody. That would be
a fun
challenge actually, to try and like compose a piece of music and
limit
it to like
just because
you get the Mario editor thing.
Get the family tracker up while we're doing that. But anyway. So we're gonna play this and hopefully it will sound alright. So 3, 2, 1. Obviously that's where it would to show the loop and stuff. I forgot there is a hi-hat in this. Generally a lot of the Pokemon music doesn't have that.
There was a little bit of percussion. Yeah,
just to kind of... Because the weird thing about this track and the weird thing about Pokemon music is it's actually really high tempo. This is 170 that this was set, so it's the same as the original battle theme.
Yeah, that's true actually, yeah. Because a lot of it's like long held notes, you don't really realise...
Yeah.
Like the only time you really hear the... BPM is through like the counter melody, really.
Yeah, and like so with this particular track, as you heard, like the intro is very heavily inspired that bam 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 bam. So that was like obviously not exactly the same, but that was very much what I was going for there.
It's got the like angular properties of like red and blue Pokemon. Even like the Seaside one, like it's all very like angular pitches. Like there's not much like just dropping down the semitone. Like a lot of it's very angular.
Yeah, which
she kind of like nailed. That makes it feel a lot like Pokemon.
Yeah. So something that like obviously forgot to mention was being on a Game Boy. Generally, music's shorter, so you have to constantly break this track. It has very obvious parts. It has the intro, it has the first bit, it has the second bit, and then a little bit at the end, and then goes back into it. And the thing is you want to, it needs to be as interesting as possible in a very short space of time. And it was the same when we did the Sonic tracks. It's kind of a similar thing. Like those loops are not long, so you have to keep changing.
Yeah.
So originally I had the intro a little bit shorter. I actually made it slightly longer because that's kind of like how the original was. It kind of builds a bit more. So I was like, okay, I'll add in that build. And then you hear the melody kind of play twice, and then it changes, and then it changes again, even though the counter melody is staying the same. And really what pushes the track along is a lot of that bass, because the bass is kind of going badu, 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 badu. It's like kind of the bounce to it, like almost like a march, I guess.
Yeah.
But what I did is also panned a little bit. There's not a lot of panning going on in this, but I kind of moved the melody to the left and the counter melody to the right. So when you listen to it, it's not all on top of each other, because originally it was just all central. The problem with doing that, it became a little bit messy. And I know on the Game Boy you only really had one speaker, it was probably all in mono. But if I was doing it now and I was trying to use this to emulate it, I would definitely give it a bit more space.
Don't know if it'd be stereo if you put the headphones in.
Oh yeah, that's probably true. Unless it was,
I can imagine it's just kind of composed for mono though.
Yeah. Trying to very
interesting
cool
to find out actually.
But yeah, like I feel like even though the beginning bit, the melody, I wish that was kind of a bit more like longer notes drawn out and stuff. The fact that I managed to, because I went back and I changed the counter melody so many times, and I eventually went with this bit at the end of it, and I was like, that feels far more Pokemon-y than what I had originally. So the way that a lot of that ended up coming out was more just the fact of like I had a very different counter melody. I had very, very obvious counter melody to what was going on, but it just felt like it was two separate melodies playing, and I was like, I needed the music to hone in more on what the main melody is doing, with the counter melody being there, but not being the main focus.
Yeah.
And by using a lot of arpeggiated and going up and down notes and stuff, that actually made it sound more interesting, because it was like there is something else going on, but it's not taking away from what I'm trying to get the listener to focus on. So I will say, this to me was much harder for me to do than the Sonic stuff. Like I legitimately struggled with this because I couldn't quite get how I wanted it to sound. And originally I was going to scrap the melody, but when I really like the second half of the track, it has a very battle feel to it. It's very like, oh shit, like I'm in a battle kind of thing. And I couldn't get the beginning bit to work, but then going back and changing the counter melody really, and having those arpeggiated kind of notes in there, really improved it in my eyes, and really made it feel more like Pokemon, and meant I didn't have to change the melody. It meant I could just change that up, and it kind of came together when I changed that change.
No, I can feel that. Yeah, it's like when you try and do a cover or like a inspired piece of music, you kind of have to think what are like the key aspects of this, and what like ties together a lot of the music in that game.
Yeah,
because there's usually like most composers go for like a certain style. It's like you can hear it a lot when you see the red and blue music in like Gold and Silver.
Yeah,
like you can see like how another composer's style, like they add on to it, but when they was like recomposing the track, they try to keep like the feel of like the original composer.
Yeah.
It is interesting how like two composers will cover completely different things with the same source material.
Yeah,
but you got like the key elements of like the Pokemon battle music that identify it, but it's different, where it feels like it's from a slightly different point of view, I guess. Trying to think of the best word.
Yeah, I know what you mean though. It's putting your own stamp on something. Like if I was to go and make a version of the original battle theme, say I learned how to play it and all that, like what would I add to that? What would I change about it? It definitely wouldn't. It would have all the elements there, but it would feel different because I'm not the same person composing for it.
And people go for like the same tools they use, don't they?
Yeah,
it's like a lot of my music has kind of like a disco kind of like more kind of industrially feel.
Yeah.
So like you kind of go to like the certain things you like.
Yeah.
But then it's like it's like trying to remove your own like stamp, but then also trying to like keep some of your like individuality to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean that's the thing, and it
is hard to try and. Sometimes it is harder to do a cover than it is just to make something. On your own, like something fresh.
Yeah, because you obviously want it to be. If you want to cover it, you want to do it in a style. It can be a completely different style, but you've got, at the end of the day, the elements what make that track that. You kind of want to get that to shine through.
Like the arpeggiated counter melody. You got the kind of stabbing, like leaping main melody.
Yeah.
Then you also got like just this sense of energy, which I guess is kind of from like the tempo.
Yeah.
It has that sense of like energy and like intensity, which is what you really need in like any kind of battle music, really.
Yeah.
Like any games.
And especially with Pokemon stuff where they don't have percussion, because I could put drums behind it and be like, which would massively help. But I was like, what's the point of putting percussion behind it when originally these games didn't have it? Like the hi-hat is literally there. It was more like a tempo thing, but it kind of keeps like it moving along. But I turned it down, so it wasn't.
One of the reasons why the counter melody is so arpeggiated is to give that bass drive in this, to give the drive to the song.
Yeah.
So it gives it a sense that it's constantly being pushed forward. Because if you slow down that counter melody or like took it from arpeggiated to just like single notes, like it would lose so much of its like sense of momentum and like energy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a really interesting experience trying to emulate Pokemon music, and I think what I've learned from it is that like breaking the tracks down, like they're very complex. Maybe the longer themes are, maybe the battle themes are and stuff like that, because I know a lot of the city music isn't particularly long loops, but like whether it's the gym leader battle, whether it's the trainer battle, wild Pokemon, that they have very similar aspects to how they work, but they're also like way more complex. And I think I've finally like can appreciate it for what it is. Because obviously when I think of like the music, I just hum the main melody. I'm not really listening to the counter melody. And now listening to these tracks and getting really absorbed in it, I'm like, I've got a newfound appreciation for just how good these pieces of music are. And like listening to like, say, Let's Go Pikachu Eevee's like orchestrated versions of it, I'm like, this is probably what they had in mind when they originally wrote it, for like these big, all these different pieces, different instruments to play it, and then to shrink that down onto 4 tracks of audio. Like it's kind of crazy. And yeah, I really appreciate just how good the music in this game, even more so now than I think I've ever done. And I like a lot of the Pokemon music, so yeah.
No, totally.
All right, well, let's move on to yours.
Yeah. I guess we'll just play it and then I'll talk about it afterwards.
Alrighty. Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
That is the stuff of nightmares.
So, yeah, I kind of doubled down on the kind of scary thing, but I wanted to combine it with Silent Hill 2. So I was listening. I love Silent Hill 2's atmospheric, I guess what, soundscapes and actual compositions. But yeah, so I took influence from Yamaoka Akira, the composer of Silent Hill 2. The track especially I took inspiration from was Basement Dwellers, which plays when you go into like the really dark basement. The hospital is in Silent Hill 2? I can't remember now, it's been a while. But yeah, it's a really scary place because like you can't even like look at the map because it's like so dark down there, so you have to like keep going back up and stuff. But yeah, amazing atmospheric music. So I was trying to combine the Lavender Town discordant music with the very more atmospheric 90s kind of like synthy sounds. So I ended up using like the sound of like a heartbeat and the sound of like the radio static as like extra instrumentation, I guess. and then used the 3-part melody from the original, and yeah, added a lot of Pokemon cries. I think they're all ghost types, but I can't remember which ones they were.
One of them sounded like Ghastly Haunter or Gengar, I think.
Yeah, they're
I'm not sure
all
which one it
ghost
was.
Pokemon, I think, from like the first 2 games.
Like legitimately, like listen to it then, because the first proper time I've heard it just like through headphones and stuff. I was like, this is creepy as fuck. Like,
Thank you.
it's definitely something that I can imagine. You know, you don't want to listen. You don't want it suddenly to come on at night. You're trying to sleep. It's like, it's like, oh god, like it's fucking horrible.
Trying to make it sound like organic, but also kind of like electronic. It's kind of like a living organism, like a living computer is what I'm trying to go for. I guess also I use the... Yeah, so like the structure is the original Pokemon bit from...
Red, blue, and yellow.
Yeah, red, blue. And then it goes to Tomorrow's section. And it ends with the Pokemon Gold and Silver version, like the happy version that they used.
Yeah,
it's Go Ishinio?
Yes, I can't pronounce his name, but Go, yeah.
Yeah, the composer for that one. Because I guess technically there's 3 composers that I'm combining together, though. I kind of just use his for, like, counter effect. Yeah, so it kind of starts with, like, the classic Pokemon sound, where it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of eerie. It's kind of, like, a bit Pokemon-y. And then, like, the radio static's a very big Silent Hill thing, so I wanted to include that in some way. So I had that as, like, the kind of the beginning of the horror. And then in the beta of Pokemon Red and Blue, they have like a real shrill tone that wasn't in the actual released version. So that's what that original sound was. Like, brrr. So I added like loads of effects to that and tried to make it painful to listen to, but not too painful, because some of the sounds I was doing were like ear bleeding. But I was like, that's probably enough to like set a feeling of like unease, but not like it's going to actually hurt your ears.
You know what? Thinking about it now, it's almost like, you know, when you're in a video game and you can hear like nightclub music and you open the door and it suddenly becomes really loud. It's almost got that effect that like it's like under a trapdoor, where it's like it's so low and so like dirty that it's almost like if you open the trapdoor, it'll be like, brrr, like, you know, kind of like jumping in your face.
Yeah,
it's got a very like feel to it.
Oh yeah, totally. Because I was trying to do it like it's you entering Silent Hill.
Yeah.
So like as you go in, it gets like the atmosphere gets like thicker and heavy, and then as you like leave the other side, it then goes back to like the jolly.
Yeah.
But then like the radio static comes back in at the end. So it's kind of like trying to chart like a journey. Yeah, it'd be like, oh, are you free?
Yeah.
Are we living in oh god, Inception?
Yeah.
Like, is it real?
Like,
is it
are
not
you
real?
actually real? Or are you dead
Am I
now?
out? Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
like kind of like the fake out wake up scene, and like the monster's still in the room kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I was trying to like chart like a journey, but like the big problem was trying to get all the things to balance. Can't remember how many sounds I went through for like the synthesizers and stuff. I went through so much. At one point it was like very orchestral, then went to like organs and like 70 synths, and then like so I ended up just using Alchemy and just like going through many sounds to try and get the balance of them, trying to sound like industrial, but also like musical. I don't want it to be completely atonal. Then also I don't want to make it feel like there's just a piece of music playing. I want to make it feel like you're inside like a machine that's kind of like alive.
It sounds like, you know how like we have a lot of indie horror games. So if this wasn't for Pokemon, I could imagine this being like in like Lone Survivor, you know, and a lot of those like indie horror games where like, you know, it's not like the part where the fucking monsters come in, but you enter a new area, or like there's some it makes you feel very uncomfortable kind of thing, like exploring somewhere.
It's like the build up in Jaws, not the end. Like as a like it's all about suspense, which is what I was trying to make it. Like this entire piece is just like the suspense and like feel of like unease rather than like horror. Like try and get that feeling of dread, which is what kept happening when I kept googling Lavender Town music.
Oh yeah, it's definitely like taking a piece of music that's already you know, kind of known for being a little bit uncomfortable, and suddenly like kind of ramping up to 11, being like, well, now it's really dark, it's really dirty sounding. You've got the sound of like the heart, the static, you know, all the classic things you're trying to put with horror, or at least with, you know, that it's a very anxious piece of music. I can see someone being like very like having anxiety after listening to this and be like, ugh! You know, put you on edge kind of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely the desired effect.
Yes.
It's definitely what I want people to feel.
I just love how dirty the bass is, and it's like brrr, brrr, it's like so low,
so
and, like,
industrial.
Yeah,
like
it's like Nine Inch Nails made Pokemon music, you know.
Yeah, there's definitely that influence.
Yeah, it's I think you kind of nailed what you were going for. I think it's got that very, like I said, eerie dread. Like everything you imagine with horror stuff, it's definitely got that kind of feel going on with it.
Yeah, it's also like it's just my kind of horror. Like,
psychological.
Yeah, I like psychological horror. I like 60s black and white, like the original like Haunting film.
Yeah.
Like I like that kind of horror. Like I'm not a jump scare gore kind of person. So this is like the kind of things that I want to express with like my my music rather than like
yes,
jump scary.
It's kind of hard to make jump scary music though, I guess, because unless without visuals.
Yeah, just becomes like noise, just like loads of like quiet things and just like the equivalent of just a fake out jump where it's just like whoa.
Yeah,
it's like so lame. But anyway, yeah, that's why this piece of music's so good, and I hope I did Lavender Town justice.
I mean, I've never really looked up remixes and stuff, but like I feel like you've done, like you set out a task to make it Silent Hill cross with Pokemon, and I think you've accomplished that. I mean, I've not played Silent Hill. I played a demo or a bit of it, and I'm like, it's too scary for me. So
yeah,
you know, going with those iconic sound effects and things, and really kind of making it sound. Even it sounds a bit slower as well, which I think also helps. I don't know if it is the same speed.
There is a tempo change.
Yeah.
So it goes from 120 to like 113.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make it feel more sluggish. Then the tempo comes back in over the radio static. So the radio static's used to like blur the change in tempo.
Yeah.
So like you don't really notice it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why there's like the stretches of, and also kind of works for just like building up the eeriness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I can hide this underneath here. So also there's a lot of automation on this.
Yeah.
I wanted like the ghosts to start off like far out and then like come closer and closer.
Yeah.
But also like, a couple of them, they're like on the same side to try and trick you out.
Yeah. It's like doing that thing with panning and like bouncing shit around and stuff.
Like, the heartbeat has like a filter on it.
Yeah.
So like as the piece goes on, it gets more of like a filter, which makes it sound more like robotic.
Yeah.
It kind of loses like the bass end. I think it's like I think it was like the cutoff for like the distortion, I think, is what I used.
Yeah.
So like it wasn't. It's a flange. So that's why it sounds a bit like boop, 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 boop. So it kind of goes a bit more like the high end.
Yeah,
so it sounds less like a heartbeat, more like a mechanical thing.
Yeah, it's very creepy. Listen to it. I do like the heartbeat being part. I don't know if it is the percussion, but it's like dum, 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 dum,
yeah, it's just a heartbeat.
That kind of like rhythm to it. It's like this is clever. So, but yeah, I think you've absolutely nailed what you were going for with that. So it's hopefully some people got quite creeped out by it, I guess. Or go and listen to it in your own time. Put some headphones on, and
that was the plan.
Yeah, I mean, I will say it's been really fun taking a stab at Pokemon music, because obviously it's a franchise that a lot of people like, but it's also trying to replicate this. The difference between this and Sonic for me, with Sonic, is like you can almost kind of do, there's quite a lot to do there. There's a lot of easier things, harder things. Like Pokemon now, like going back and like listening to it, I'm realizing just how complex a lot of the music is, and I feel like I challenged myself with this, and it was difficult. But I've had a lot of fun doing it, and I hope that continues with a lot of the games that we are hopefully going to be looking at, because I feel like I'm actually pushing myself in directions I've never done before. So that's obviously kind of what we wanted to set out and do in the first place.
Yeah, totally. Like it's always interesting to push yourself into different directions.
Yeah. Right. Well, I guess like that's probably going to do it for us. Thank you very much for listening to this as always. We haven't decided on what we're going to do next. We've got some ideas, but we're going to be making a big list of things, of stuff we want to take a stab at.
Yeah, if anyone wants us to try and do stuff, always up for
you can suggest
recommendations.
We'll take suggestions and things like that. I mean, bear in mind we're probably we will be looking at longer pieces of music eventually and doing bigger, grander things, but at the moment I think we're keeping on a slightly smaller scale just so that we don't get into
the idea is to have smaller pieces to like bash out in a couple of days, and then have longer pieces that would take more time to like try and set up a schedule, and like we can slowly work on grander arrangements. Because trying to arrange like an orchestral piece for like 10 minutes requires a lot more time than it does to like make a minute of like chiptune.
Yeah, exactly. So expect it'll probably be a while, I think, before we get like a proper like big like kind of crazy thing out. But
maybe go for like episode 10 maybe or something, like a landmark thing. Maybe go for like a bigger piece for that.
So the cool thing is like we'll be bouncing between. There's so much stuff that we want to have a crack at. So it's not like we're going to be out of any ideas so soon.
It's not all going to be retro. It's easier because like retro music is way shorter. So like, but we're not just doing retro. Like I do want to.
Yeah, we'll be taking
incorporate more like PS1, PS2, PS3, like
GameCube, all that sort of stuff.
I want to do a broad section of like game music.
It's alright if we do PS2 and GameCube because it's all MIDI. So it's fine.
Well, that's a big problem because like so much of like completely off tangent, but like so much of modern game music is just film music. And I feel like it loses some of its appeal, but that's a completely separate topic to go down.
So alright, well, like I said before, thank you very much for tuning into this episode. If you like it, hit the like button. If you want to see more content like this and any other things that are on the channel, hit subscribe. It'll keep you up to date with things. Links for Facebook and Twitter will be down below in the description as always. And until next video, it's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from this guy.
Goodbye.